Oh, how come I'm always the one that gets picked on?
Because you're so good at it.
Did you just hear a notice that recording in progress, Carol?
Yeah, I did it.
Oh,
There we go. It's 7 o'clock. Go for it.
Go for it.
Just make sure you note who's here so anyone who may be listening in, which is no one at the moment, will know who's actually in attendance.
Okay.
okay, Joe
My name is
Mayato
Joe
here.
Ryan. I'm going to take who's in the meeting tonight. The meeting is open at 7 o'clock. Could I have a account, please?
Michael
Joe Mayato
Focarelli.
is here.
Michael Focarelli's here.
Don Medeiros here.
And Joe Mayato did say he was here already.
Okay.
Of the five, let me think. Sam, Snow.
He's absent.
Yeah.
And Cindy Gould is also present.
Okay,
And
go
Carol
for it.
Bedell.
Okay, Donnie, you want to, is that the first thing on the agenda?
It's not, but we're gonna move it up, Billy, so that he can
Okay.
get going.
Okay. Yeah, it was just an informational blurb. And since putting it on the agenda, I was at a meeting with Tony and Bob this week and found out that the information wasn't entirely accurate. So it's almost like not an opportunity. It sounded like the Infrastructure Bank has hired, just so you know, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank has hired Fuss and O'Neill, an engineering company, to help the towns in Rhode Island identify stormwater projects under the municipal resiliency program, to help the towns identify them and even to offer assistance with some preliminary planning, preliminary rough designs, just to kind of kick it off. They have money that they want to, spread out for projects, using green infrastructure and whatnot. And so to kick it along, they've hired Fuss and O'Neill. I was under the impression that meant Fuss and O'Neill would be available to help us put the beach work out to bid, like do an RFP for it and put it out to bid, but that's not their capacity. So it's kind of, as in the context of the agenda and us, it's a no starter or a non-issue. So along those lines, we're just going to have to put an RFP together. I think we ought to start thinking about that next month, because we're all busy during the summer, and we want to get that work advertised and the bid awarded so that the work can be done starting in September as soon as the beach closes, and conclude in October or November, because the grant's going to run out.
So, Donnie, this is for the grant that we were awarded, like whenever that was last summer, that Larry Anderson and you and Larry
Actually,
Anderson.
Been almost a couple of years now. So this fall is the safety completed this fall, and we have nothing to worry about the deadlines. They seem to be very flexible, but there's no reason to push that. We just need to get ourselves going so it's in position.
Do we have a spec already, Donnie?
No, what we have is we have the approved design. We have the engineering plans that were approved by CRMC with the permit CRMC gave us. So we have a set of plans. We just got to write up some bid specs, advertise, have a pre-bid, bid opening, award the contract, and then have a contractor lined up to go.
But at least the plans are all prepared, so that's like 90% of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's some time spent to do a proper set of bid specs. The idea is you don't want the contractor coming back for extras, so we want to be thorough when we do that.
Is that something you're gonna be able to handle, Donnie, or are we gonna have to hire somebody or what?
No, I'm gonna be responsible for it. I'm actually gonna see if I can get help from a local citizen who has experience with some of these projects that have been done recently. I'm not gonna identify that person because I haven't got a chance to ask them yet. But if the answer is yes, I will certainly share that with the commission and see if you guys think that's a good idea to bring that person on board for that task.
All right, and if you need any help from me, I'm willing to help you as well, Donnie.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Donnie.
All right, so to go back to the top of the agenda is to review the minutes from the last meeting. By the way, we've had 3 versions of the agenda, so we should be looking at the one to see how it looks different. It's the one that has a total amount under bills, and the total amount is $1,055.20. So that's the correct version of the agenda, the current one.
If I can interrupt for a second, I'm going to sign off. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't feel I should be approving minutes. And as you know, I have another meeting. So if that's okay, you guys still have a quorum, I believe.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Okay,
we'll
thank you,
we'll give you
everybody.
partial
All right, thanks,
credit,
Donnie.
Donnie.
Great,
thank you.
All right, good night.
All right, so we're back to the approval of the minutes. I have a few items. Cindy, are you hearing?
Yes, I can.
All right, I'll go through the ones that I have, and then if anybody else has anything else. Under the bills, where it says Ned Levine, $96 reimbursement, can we add in that was for legal forms?
Okay.
Just to be a little more descriptive there. All right.
Yep.
And then on the second page, it says a meeting on December 20th and so forth. It says Jay Farrell and Jay Mayato. Bill Ryan was also there as well.
Oh, he was. Oh, all right.
Okay. And then the only other thing I have is very minor. On the very last sentence, under motion made to adjourn, you have a quote instead of a colon there.
Oh. All right.
That's all I had. I don't know if anybody else had anything else.
Motion to approve the minutes with corrections.
As amended, right?
Yeah, with corrections.
I'll second that.
Nope.
That's all right. Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Should we say our
Motion
names, Carol?
passes unanimously.
It's unanimous. There's 3 in attendance.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the bills. And on the most current one, we have Humphreys for $341.67 for paint.
Joe,
John?
before you go too much farther, the next item was really the surf.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, you're right. The Little Compton Surf Camp requesting permission for the upcoming season. According to her letter, she has been doing this for 13 years now. This is Anna Barron. And I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second that motion.
And that's contingent on them providing the proper
Yes.
insurance documents. Motion made and seconded to approve the request from Little Compton Surf Camp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Unanimous.
passes unanimously. Sorry, Carol. So now bills. Humphreys, $341.67 was for paint. John Costa, $600 to move the containers and chairs. That was the other bill that we had never received. That he had said we hadn't paid him, but we did, but that was a previous bill because we had that storm and all that stuff. So And then we had Humphreys, 1825. That was the hardware that Jimmy had to buy to put the gate back together. And just to bring everybody up to speed real quick on that, he had to do that because some unknown person took the gate down. From all the research that we did, Billy didn't authorize it. I never talked to anybody. The police chief, Carol never heard on the town end of anybody that officially removed that gate. So that gate should not have been removed. And technically that's vandalism, what they did. So anyway, that's the last item, and the total is $1,055.20.
You just missed the AT&T one.
Yep, I did. AT&T 95.28. For a total of $1,055.20.
Do I have a motion to approve the bills?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Motion made and seconded to approve the bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is to confirm and accept the beach budget for the upcoming season. Jimmy has worked with Tony on a little bit of the wording after Billy and my meeting with Tony and Jimmy. And he's ready to submit that. I'll make a motion that we officially approve the final version that Jimmy put together.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the beach budget for the upcoming season. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Carol, I see you smirking over there. Are we supposed to be saying our name first before we say aye?
Well, at the moment, it's clear that there's only the three of you there, and there are three verbal affirmatives, so it's okay.
Okay,
In the minutes, she has to reflect it, but it's clear, and there's nobody actually else on this meeting.
okay. And so the next item on the agenda is further discussion, collaborating with the Ag Trust in maintaining Almies Creek. And I saw an email going back and forth, and I think Billy is going to be attending their next meeting and just discussing ideas with them and so forth, just to have some sort of, we're not committing to anything or anything like that, but just to have some sort of cooperative dialogue going forward.
And they're meeting an executive session on this, I think.
Oh, they are?
I believe they are, yes.
If it's executive session, how would we be able to participate?
Because you're invited.
You are invited.
Mhm.
We're all invited. But actually, I think the invitation went out before the governors, anyway, they're meeting an executive session with the beach commission to, this is what I understand from Ned.
Yeah,
Guys, do you understand the same thing, Billy?
yep,
Because they just want to have a sit down
conversation.
conversation, so it's not in a formal meeting setting.
Now, we can't have more than 2 people there, right?
Well, you can, but you have to post for it.
Oh. I don't think we really need to at this point, do we?
No, I think, what do you think, Bill?
It's, you know what, I'm gonna go for sure, and if somebody would like to attend with me, that is fine, but we would, yeah, you definitely have to post it. If not, I can go alone and get the, you know, the information out of that, and then when the board is all here, then we can make a meeting with them.
If only 2 of you go, you don't have to post.
Okay,
Okay,
Right.
Have 3 or more.
I think they just wanted to toss things around and
right.
you know,
right,
just think about some ideas and so forth. That was my understanding.
I'd be happy to go with you, Bill.
okay.
All right. So I guess we could put in the minutes, Cindy, that Billy and Mike will be attending the meeting with the Ag Trust.
When is that?
That I'm not sure.
Well, their meeting is always the first Wednesday of the month, so it would be March 2nd.
Okay,
I think it was in March, yeah.
March 2nd would be their date.
Yep, yep. Because I think strangely, the email went out on 2/3 and the meeting was on 3/2 or something, so I was a little confused. All right, so the next item we already talked about. And then we've got the report from the beach manager. Jimmy couldn't attend. So he's been going back and forth with a lot of things and getting squared away. By the way, Jimmy is not going to have that job in Fall River, just as an aside. So he'll be able to focus on our stuff, which I don't know if it's good for him or bad for him, but he's had a lot of health issues and, you know. Anyway, so the budget. And I did note that it shouldn't have said here, but the reason is because Cindy just copy and pasted from his report. But Jimmy provided us with copies of the budget and so forth, and we've approved that. And we're basing it, he's trying to be conservative, but by the same token, he had to show that we weren't going to have a loss, and that's what the thing was with Tony. So we had already approved the increased ticket rate. So the expenses, he's showing an increase to cover the pay rate increases because we have to stay competitive for the lifeguards in order to get them. And he also sent out, well, I think it's further on here, but if anybody knows of anybody that wants a job for the summer at the beach, to let Jimmy know, because he still needs more people. The warrant does not have the 14,000 from the capital budget included. We needed to talk to Tony about that to finalize that, so we can pass everything along to Carol. The camper application. He hasn't posted with the town clerk's office till we have final approval from the commission, he's saying. So we had spoken with the chief, and the chief is okay on the situation with regards to the gate. But the only thing was they didn't want the word stewards of the beach. So we've been going back and forth on the wording, and the final result was to put in there that the campers are required to call the police department if there are any issues at the beach. This way it does put them on the spot that they're required to take action, but not physically themselves, just to call.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Jamie told me that a couple of different people, I guess, came back and didn't like the steward's word because he thought some of those guys might try to take action themselves. And Craig Schmidt accepted the job of head lifeguard. Unfortunately, oh God, her name is escaping me right now. Somebody help me. The head.
I know.
Claire Alder. So Claire Alder initially was going to take it because she had accepted a teaching job, but she doesn't think that she still wants to be involved, but she didn't want to have the responsibility of being the head lifeguard because she's got too much other going on with a new job and so forth. So Craig Schmidt, who's the other senior person there, has agreed to do it. And we're hoping also that Sarah Runquist, which was the other senior person last year, can come back. She's I spoke to her the other day, and her only contingency is that if she can find a room in Little Compton to rent. So if anybody knows anybody that can rent a room, then we can have her back for the summer. She really wants to do it, but she needs to have a place to stay. She's very responsible. She's no kid. She's in her 50s, and Jimmy highly recommends her as a tenant to anybody that can do that. So if anybody thinks of anybody, let's let her know. So he goes on to say that we have 6 lifeguards, 2 gate personnel, and 2 night security not returning. So we need to replace those positions. So I'm sure Jimmy will work on it, and before then, he always comes through and gets people. But if anybody knows of anybody looking for summer jobs, contact Jimmy. The last item on his report, well, there's sort of 2 items, but the last numbered item on his report is that the USLA Board of Directors meeting is in Chicago on April 19th to 24th. We've always helped to support him with the expenses, and I'm going to make a motion that we do that once again. The estimate is for $1,700 in total. And I'm sure if it's less than that, you know, he'll just submit a request for the lesser amount. So I'll make that in a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded that we support Jimmy for the expenses of the USLA conference. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And the last item was just informational that the DEM boat registration has been done. The DEM and Health Department licenses are in the works.
Now, before you go and adjourn, can I ask a question? On the first one where you make a notation that the 14,000 is not in the capital budget, is that something that the Beach Commission needed 14,000 to be listed there for the Beach Commission?
I think it's a matter of the format that it's classified in. And he was talking to Tony about that and to get that clarified before he can pass the final version to you. And he was asking about the wording. We had talked about, originally we talked about like catastrophic or catastrophe, and
Right.
Tony didn't want that because he said that if we needed it for something else and it wasn't technically a catastrophe, that we shouldn't do it that way. So Jimmy is going to discuss some other final wording and get that to you.
Okay, but what you voted earlier for your budget submission includes some authorization about this capital budget amount?
Right, it includes it. It's just the wording, I think, that Jimmy has to clarify to get it right.
Okay.
And also, we were supposed to have been waiting for Joe DeSantis, and he said he was going to talk to the accounting firm to come up with wording, but we never really got anywhere with that. He wasn't sure of the wording, and he was going to ask the accounting firm, and so
The wording for your stroke?
the wording for
No.
the capital account, because it was originally, you know, catastrophic funds or something like that. But this way it allows it to be for different reasons. And that 14,000, I believe, is made up of different amounts. That's the total.
Okay. It's generally the solicitor's office that you get wording on the stroke, not the auditors.
Okay.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we
It
don't
wa-
want
it
to make
wasn't-
it a stroke.
I think it wasn't so much the wording for the stroke itself, but the wording that would be in the general ledger of the town's accounts. And that's where they were sort of confused about it.
Yes.
Okay.
The objective is obviously that we want to build up the fund over time, and in case we need it, it's there, and we don't have to have like an emergency meeting with the town to get money if there's a bad storm or something. Because as you know, we did it last winter, I think it was. You have to act really quickly sometimes when there's a storm to prevent further damage.
Well, if you are thinking that this is I'll call it a reserve fund,
Yes.
monies would be put into that you would use during unusual circumstances, then there needs to be a stroke in the warrant that every year authorizes you to dip into that should an emergency occur.
Oh.
Well, it's
So
not
you
just
can-
that, Carol, because there's also, I think, 4,000 of that or something was also like, for example, to build up a fund for the new Gator and boat. And it's like those amounts that are supposed to build up and they were actually just disappearing.
Yeah, but what you're saying, Carol, that even though if we put this in this fund, we'd have to ask for it every year to appropriate that money, right?
To encumber it, right?
Well, it's twofold. Because one, in order to put the money into that reserve fund, I'm going to call it, there has to be some vote of the Beach Commission. Let's just say at the end of your fiscal year, you had $10,000 left.
Yeah,
You voted to take that 10,000 and retain it into that reserve fund.
okay,
So that's one motion, but you don't need a town meeting for that, and you don't need a town
okay,
create the fund, but you need a town meeting warrant article that authorizes the beach commission to use that fund
oh, I got you, I got you,
should
I got
something
you.
come up. Much like the harbor management fund is authorized by a vote of the town meeting, the ambulance reimbursement fund is authorized by the town meeting. The town's reserve fund has an authorizing stroke within the town meeting. So
I
any
see,
fund like that, that isn't dictated by, say, state law for us to use, needs to have some sort of a warrant article that authorizes you, in this case, to spend
yep,
monies under certain circumstances.
But
yep,
Carol, that doesn't have to have an amount attached to it. It just has to have the release of our use of the reserve fund.
It depends on how it's worded. Some of them, like the ambulance reimbursement fund, always had a certain dollar amount that was limited how much each year they could spend out of it. Harbor management doesn't have a dollar amount. Reserve fund doesn't have a dollar amount, but it does say in the next fiscal year you have to reimburse it. So they're all written differently, but
yeah,
And it's kind of like a two-part thing. So in the case of an emergency at the beach like that, we wouldn't know an amount ahead of time because it just depends on what happens, for that part. But also, he wanted to make sure that he had the right wording in there for those capital items to be able to build up the fund, for example, for the boat, for the gator, things like that. Because otherwise you'd have these large expenditures that also all of a sudden just came in one year. And our budget previously had that intention, but for some reason, because of the format of it, it was never carried forward. So it always just went back to the general fund, whatever
Right.
money was left.
And that's because there was evidently not a vote of the beach commission directing the treasurer to reserve those funds
Right.
over. It doesn't,
Right.
so,
it automatically goes into the general fund unless you say it needs to be held over and
Right.
marked for something.
okay,
Now,
And with Tony's guidance, he was trying to keep that separate, those amounts in the budget, so that we would know, like, in the budget, these items are, it's not a direct expense for the current year, but it's an accumulation to be spent at some point in the future. So I guess it sounds like we'll have to get Jimmy to make sure that he gets the proper wording, not only from Tony, but from you, Carol.
well, in what you normally give me, oftentimes you've got two articles you're submitting. One
Yeah.
that's your normal operating budget, which, if I understand correctly, these extra dollar amounts are in that. You'll just need to take a vote at the end of your fiscal year to reserve them into that special fund.
Right.
Normally, there's one more that you put some dollar amount into a special emergency fund for the repair of the beach or unusual circumstances. If that one is written correctly, then that serves your need for the other one, because I would assume that the money that you set aside that way and ask for is going to go into that same fund, the one I'm calling a reserve fund,
yeah,
just like those other little amounts will go from whatever's left in your annual budget into that one fund. So if they're written correctly, what you voted earlier will work.
Yeah.
You just got to make sure it's written correctly.
yeah,
Yeah. And as far as the amounts for each line item and everything, Billy and I already went over with Jimmy and Tony, all those items and what his basis was for projecting forward to the current year.
right,
And, we toyed around with that. And so we're all set with the budget itself. It's just that this formatting and the presentation to make sure that's proper.
And you have to remember the format that Tony likes to see, which is a spreadsheet showing all different
right,
line items, is not really what goes before the people. What goes before the people is to see if they'll appropriate X of a sum to operate the beach. It's the total, not the breakdown.
right, right,
Because the people approved the language of the budget, not the numbers and line items. Is that correct?
No,
Yeah,
they
line items.
they approve the totals.
The total.
Right. Right.
And if it's presented to them, they approve that basically they expect that's how it's going to be spent. So police, fire, a few others, well, my office, are broken down so that they see some level of how it's being spent. But several others, yours, the library, the school for sure, I don't know, I can't think of the others off the top of my head, but there's a number of others that just ask for the dollar amount, the total sum, not the breakdown. And that's generally what the people are approving, just the total, not the each individual line item.
Right,
And that's the way it should be, Carol.
And it gives you, the beach commission, more flexibility, because
Right, right.
have a year where, I don't know, it's unusually rough for storms and you have to spend more money on fixing the beach than you actually do on paying labor costs.
right,
Flexibility to do that.
right. And for example, like Jimmy assumes in his budget to be on a conservative basis, he assumes that that the full staff is going to be working every single day. But if we get bad weather days, they don't come in. So we have that little bit of savings there to give us a little leeway, maybe in another area that we go over on. You know?
Right.
So anyway,
So it
all right,
gives you flexibility on the budget.
yeah.
And that's,
All right, if there's nothing else, I think I can make a motion to adjourn at 7:30.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded to adjourn at 7:30. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes unanimously. And Carol, are you going to
Everybody have a
bill
good
us
night.
separately for all the expert advice that you give us?
Yeah,
or is
thank
it all
you.
covered?
Yeah, no.
All right, thanks a lot.